It is me again. So if you just watched the last video, you know that, and you're watching them in order, I don't know if you are, but you know that what I said was for this lesson learned exit ticket, which is your Monday exit ticket for Benchmark. I have two videos here. This first one explaining what you should be doing in the exit ticket, and then I said that I would have another video sort of filling out a similar chart based on a real life event so you can get more of an idea of what to do. So if you haven't watched the first video, I do encourage you to go back and watch it. It's also on my YouTube channel. But we're gonna get right into the second video, which is me using a real life example for support and what we should be doing and how we should be thinking about this. So again, if you're not sure, the instructions, what you're meant to do today is you are rereading paragraphs 2, 5, and 11 of the Law of Club and Fang, and you're filling out this lesson learned chart in our Google Classroom. Basically, you are going to be explaining how does what happened in paragraph 2 and paragraph 5 impact what happens later on with Buck. So in the lesson learned exit ticket, you'll see two charts. The first one is meant for you to fill out. You should be doing this. And the second one is me doing it as sort of an example using a different story. So I'm going to give you a story. And I want you to think about how does what happens first and what happens in the middle impact what happens later on, right? So this is a real life story from when I was a student. And I probably have told you this story before. I was in the 8th grade, and actually I probably haven't told you this story, but I've told you about this teacher. I was in the 8th grade, and I had this really, really mean teacher. I did not like him very much. And that's just to give you a little bit of context. And so here's what happened. So this teacher, one day, he was very angry at the class. I don't remember why. I do remember that the day before I wasn't in school. I was visiting a high school to see if I wanted to go to that high school or not, because I was in 8th grade, just like you. The next year I was going to be going to a different school. And so I came back, and my teacher was very angry about something that had happened the day before. And I am not kidding you. He took his chair and he threw it across the room. And then he picked it up and he sat it down and he stared at us like this for the next 40 minutes, right? Didn't say a word, and nobody else talked. We were all terrified. And even though he didn't throw the chair at me, even though he wasn't mad about something that I had done, I wasn't even there, I learned a lesson from this, which is that I was not going to get him angry. I would not make him upset. Why would I not make him upset? Because I saw what happened when he was mad. He threw a chair. Okay, y'all? Now, he didn't throw it at a person, but that's, even though it didn't happen to a person, it's enough to get me scared, right? So fast forward a little bit, and this teacher expects us to do something. I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it was a project. And I was not necessarily excited about this project, but I knew that even though I did not want to do this project, I needed to do this project, because if I did not do this project, this teacher would be very, very mad at me. And I had seen what he could do when he was angry, right? So because of what happened, I learned a lesson that helped me in the future. Now, what happened at first was bad, it was negative, but it helped me in the future. So how do I apply this to this chart here that we're working on? And you're not going to do this with my story, you're going to be doing this with the story about Buck. But let's say, so the first story event, this is the first thing that happens. What happens, and I'll say Miss B's, and I'm going to write in a full sentence, the first event that occurred was Miss B's 8th grade teacher getting angry and throwing a chair across the room, right? Now, the lesson, as in what lesson did I learn from this? Now, let's think about it. What did I learn from him throwing this chair? Because of this event, Miss B learned that her teacher could be violent when he was angry. She learned that upsetting him was a bad thing, right? Because what happened here? He got upset, he threw a chair. So now I know, as myself, even though again, didn't happen to me, he didn't throw the chair at me, but because of this, I know not to upset him, because if I do upset him, something bad might happen. Now lastly, the second story event. What's the second thing that happened? How do I apply the lesson that I learned? Well, what happens is, Miss B is told to do a project she does not want to do. Even though she does not want to do the project, she does it anyways because she knows better than to upset this teacher. And so the question that you're answering here is, or that I'm answering, is how did what happened in the first two events, what impact or affect what happens later on? When you're writing this, you're explaining how does Buck's first experience and the lesson he learns from it help him later on in the story? What happens that helps him later on? So in this case, what lesson did I learn based on this first event that helps me later on in the story? So the lesson Miss B learns is that it is best not to upset this teacher. This helps her later on because even though she did not want to do her project, she made sure to do it anyways, which probably kept the teacher from getting angry with her, right? Because again, going back to this, when he was angry at other people, he threw a chair. I don't want him to be angry at me, so I am going to change my behavior so that he is not angry at me later, right? So you now take what I just did here and you take what you know about the story involving Buck called The Law of Club and Fang, and you are going to write it here in this part. Write the key events of what happened in paragraph 2, write what lesson we know that Buck learns from paragraph 5, and write about what happens in paragraph 11 here. What happened in paragraph 11, and then here you are going to explain how what happened in paragraph 2 and how the lesson he learned does affect what happens in paragraph 11. What does he do based on what he's learned, all right? I love you, scholars. I miss you. I will see you hopefully very soon during one of our community meetings, during one of our virtual classes, or during office hours. All right, bye, scholars.